check the time for me.
I'm not going to keep checking the time. You're going to make it short.
Hi guys, I am here with a Bible study. I hope you guys are having a good day. Let's start off with a few Bible facts. We got animals still. So St. Peter's fish. Jesus told his disciple Peter to go fish in the Sea of Galilee, predicting that the first fish he caught, and it did, have a shekel coin in its mouth to pay for Jesus' tax and Peter's. Matthew 17:24 through 27, you can see that. Peter was then to take this shekel to pay his and Jesus' taxes with it. The fish was probably the tilapia, a fish found in the Sea of Galilee. This fish has a large mouth in which it carries its eggs, and it is often called St. Peter's fish. Now you know why. If you hear somebody saying St. Peter's fish, this is what happened. This is why. Jesus' sponge. Roman soldiers gave Jesus a drink from a sponge while he was on the cross. Sponges are marine animals whose skeletons provide the familiar sponge. Skeleton, that's weird. The Roman writer Pliny states that it was standard practice for Roman soldiers to carry a sponge with them to use in getting themselves a drink, precisely in the way that the Gospels describe. See, we learned something new by reading these. I never knew that. It's like I never thought it would have a skeleton, a sponge. It's weird. Bees. The Bible mentioned bees a number of times. Twice the swarming habits of honeybees are mentioned. Psalm 118:12 says that the nations surrounded me like bees, while Deuteronomy 144 mentions the Amorites chasing the Israelites like bees. Samson encountered a swarm of honeybees in the carcasses of a lion. Judges 14:8. The Hebrew word for bee is Deborah. And I also read that my name, Melissa, if you look it up, it means honeybee. So bee means Deborah, but honeybee means Melissa. I remember looking that up years ago. Hornets. Mom said she was stung by a hornet once when she was younger, and it hurts so very bad. 3 times the Bible mentions that God sent swarming hornets ahead of the Israelites into the land of Canaan to drive out their enemies. Some scholars see this as a literal reference to hornets, while others see it as a symbol of Egypt, just as the fly and the bee are symbols of Egypt and Assyria. In Isaiah 7:18, others see it as a symbol of God's direct intervention, which paralyzed the enemy. Crocodile wrestling. Job 41 tells of the crocodile's mighty power as follows: lay hands on him, think of the battle, you will not do it again. It describes the crocodile's snout and skin this way: who can strip off his outer garment? Who can penetrate his coat of mail? Who can open the doors of his face? Round about his teeth is terror. His back is made of rows of shields. We got 2 more, and then we'll stop. Scorpions are mentioned many times in the Bible, always as threats the Israelites faced, or as symbols of great pain and hardship. Jesus appointed 70 followers to whom he gave authority to tread upon serpents and scorpions, and nothing shall hurt you. Luke 10:19. Crocodiles. Crocodiles were abundant in the Nile River in biblical times, although not elsewhere. An entire chapter in Job is devoted to describing the crocodile called Leviathan, Job 41. The chapter contains a series of rhetorical questions to Job about what he can do to the awesome crocodile. Answer: nothing. This makes the point that God created even this fearsome creature. The descriptions in this chapter are surprisingly detailed. Job 41. Okay, so we'll stop there with the Bible facts. And so today, guys, for our Bible study, it'll be by Isabella Yusico. We haven't heard from her in a while. Okay, and we're going to be in Luke 23 today. Yesterday, I believed we talked about Jesus' resurrection and everything. So today, back to the sad parts again. We are going to be going over the crucifixion and Jesus' death and Jesus' burial. So, Isabella's Bible verse that goes with her devotion tonight is Luke 23, verse 48, which says, "And when all the crowd that came to see the crucifixion saw what had happened, they went home in deep sorrow." Could you imagine being one of the people responsible for Jesus' crucifixion, hollering, wanting him to be crucified, and then knowing after that he truly was the Son of God? I would not want to ever feel what those people felt. All right, Luke 23, let me read it to you guys. "Then the whole assembly rose and led him, Jesus, off to Pilate. And they began to accuse him, saying, 'We have found this man subverting our nation. He opposes payment of taxes to Caesar and claims to be Christ, a king.' But Jesus never told nobody not to pay taxes. As you just seen here from the Bible facts, he told Peter to go get that coin out of the fish's mouth to pay his taxes and Peter's. So Pilate asked Jesus, 'Are you the king of the Jews?' 'Yes, it is as you say,' Jesus replied. Then Pilate announced to the chief priests and the crowd, 'I find no basis for a charge against this man.' Pilate was more important than the teachers of the law. So, if he didn't bother Pilate saying he was the king of the Jews, why would it bother the teachers of the law? It bothered them because they were the ones, they wanted the people to listen to them and not Jesus. They want to be the most important people on earth. But they insisted. He stirs up the people all over Judea by his teaching. He started in Galilee and now he has come all the way here." On hearing this, Pilate asked if the man was a Galilean. When he learned that Jesus was under Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who was also in Jerusalem at that time. When Herod saw Jesus, he was greatly pleased, because for a long time he had been wanting to see him. Herod wasn't a good man. For what he had heard about him, he hoped to see him perform some miracle. He plied him with many questions, but Jesus gave him no answer. The chief priests and the teachers of the law were standing there, vehemently accusing him. Then Herod and his soldiers ridiculed and mocked him, dressing him in an elegant robe, more than likely purple, because that was the sign of royalty back then. They sent him back to Pilate. That day, Herod and Pilate became friends. Before this, they had been enemies. Pilate called together the chief priests, the rulers of the people, and said to them, "You brought me this man as one you will have inciting the people to rebellion. I have examined him in your presence and have found no basis for your charges against him. Neither has Herod, for he sent him back to us. As you can see, he has done nothing to deserve death. Therefore I will punish him, flog him, and then release him." With one voice they cried out, "Away with this man! Release Barabbas to us, who was a murderer." in insurrection in the city, Barabbas had been thrown into prison for insurrection in the city and for murder. Wanting to release Jesus, Pilate appealed to them again, but they kept shouting, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" For the third time he spoke to them, Pilate did. "Why? What crime has this man committed? I have found in him no grounds for the death penalty. Therefore I will have him punished and then release him." But with loud shouts they insistently demanded that he be crucified, and their shouts prevailed. So Pilate decided to grant their demand. He released the man who had been thrown into prison for insurrection and murder, Barabbas, the one they asked for, and surrendered Jesus to their will. As they led him away, they seized Simon from Cyrene, who was on his way in from the country, and put the cross of Jesus, and made him carry it behind Jesus, because by this time Jesus was too weak from the beatings and everything they had done to him to carry the cross. A large number of people followed him, including women who mourned and wailed for him. Jesus turned and said to them, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me. Weep for yourselves and for your children. For the time will come when you will say, 'Blessed are the barren women, the wombs that never bore, and the breasts that never nursed.' Then they will say to the mountains, 'Fall on us,' and to the hills, 'Cover us.' For if men do these things when the tree is green, what will happen when it is dry?" 2 other men, both criminals, were also led out with him to be executed. When they came to the place called the Skull, Golgotha, there they crucified him along with the criminals, one on his right, the other on his left. Jesus was in the middle. Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And they divided up his clothes by casting lots. The people stood watching, and the rulers even sneered at him. They said, "He saved others. Let him save himself if he is the Christ of God, the chosen one." The soldiers also came up and mocked him. They offered him wine vinegar and said, "If you are the King of the Jews, save yourself." There was a written notice above Jesus on the cross, which read, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at Jesus at him. "Aren't you the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other criminal rebuked him. "Don't you fear God," he said, "since you are under the same sentence? We are punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve, but this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." Jesus answered him, "I tell you the truth. Today you will be with me in paradise." It was now about the 6th hour, and darkness came over the whole land until the 9th hour. For the sun stopped shining, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Jesus called out with a loud voice, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." When he had said this, he breathed his last. The centurion, seeing what had happened, praised God and said, "Surely this was a righteous man." When all the people who had gathered to witness this sight saw what took place, they beat their breasts and went away. But all those who knew him, including the women who had followed him from Galilee, stood at a distance watching these things. That would have been Mary, the mother of Jesus, Mary Magdalene, Joanna, other women that followed Jesus, Martha, Mary's sister. Now there was a man named Joseph, a member of the council, a good and upright man, who had not consented to their decision and action. He came from the Judean town of Arimathea, and he was waiting for the kingdom of God. Going to Pilate, he asked for Jesus' body. Then he took it down, wrapped it in linen cloth, and placed it in a tomb cut in the rock, one in which no one had yet been laid, because he made that out of the rock for his own tomb. But then he gave it to Jesus. It was preparation day, and the Sabbath was about to begin. The women who had come with Jesus from Galilee followed Joseph and saw the tomb and how his body was laid in it. Then they went home and prepared spices and perfumes, but they rested on the Sabbath in obedience to the commandment. And that is where we're stopping. That's Luke 23. And then, of course, they went back to Pilate and was like, please let us, the people said that he's going to raise from death on the third day. Let us go and make the tomb secure with soldiers. So Pilate's like, make it as secure as you know how. And they had soldiers guarding the tomb so nobody could come roll away the stone and take Jesus. But that wouldn't stop Jesus and the angels. They were afraid the disciples were going to take Jesus' body and say he rose from the dead. But that didn't happen. That's why they guarded it. All right. So Isabella's devotion is, as I sit here writing, my son Isaac is singing the soundtrack from Frozen at the top of his lungs. Let it go, let it go. Oh. He brings truly immeasurable and uniquely delivered love and joy to me, my family, and many others. Yet, when he was born with Down syndrome, just after Easter 10 years ago, I confess it was one of the darkest times of my life. An agonizing and humbling admission for a mom to make. Now I can say with complete honesty that Isaac is one of the greatest joys in my life. A precious and continuous gift. His guideless and generous affection, unprejudiced enjoyment for the little things. Keep emotional intuition and innocence, yet profound faith are priceless blessings. Plus, it's just plain fun. As I remember those early dark moments of my pregnancy and the first months after Isaac's arrival, I think about the last few days of Jesus' life. How unspeakably dark that time must have been for his followers. The hope Jesus offered was seemingly extinguished on that hill. I found myself unexpectedly but joyously pregnant at 43 with a heart-whelming anticipation of new life. Then that joy was suddenly, confusingly, agonizingly gone. Did the apostles feel the same way? Were they lost in despair? But we are wrong to underestimate God's judgments and his love for us. The empty tomb and then Jesus' appearance in the upper room herald joy, just as Isaac does for me today. If you are at what seems like a terminal low point, look to the cross. Recall how hopeless it all seemed. Then remember Easter. Thank you, Jesus, for Easter, when Jesus rose from the dead. And your homework is this tonight. Read Luke 22, 23, and 24. Imagine being in the same scene, the fears and ultimately the joy. Think of a time when Jesus resurrected you. When you were in the darkness, feeling like there was no hope, and then came back to life again through Jesus. Became a different person, a better person. Came alive again. All right, guys, so what's the time?
It's time to...
All right, Sharon wants me to go ahead and stop here for today. So I will let you guys go. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Let's bring those souls to Jesus, and I hope you guys have a good night's sleep. Good night, guys.